Welcome to the Online Edge podcast.
That's fake.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have a special guest in the studio. Sam is with us. Sam is a young entrepreneur, and so he's here with a page full of questions, mostly for Luke, actually. I'm just interjected myself into this podcast. I may speak in a little bit on some of the marketing stuff, but just really how to get a business up and going, some specific questions for some stuff that, Luke, you got some very hands-on experience with. And we'll also probably talk some branding because we're in a branding series right now, and this will be the perfect time to talk through that. So, Luke, walk us through it. Where are we going, man?
Yeah, Sam. So, welcome.
Thanks, man.
Give us a little bit of background on you, just so everybody kind of knows a little bit more.
Well,
about Sam
so
Robbins.
I just graduated high school and just kind of figuring out what I want to do with my life. I decided to not go the normal route of college and go the route of like business, and so. I realized that like the one thing like I'm good at is lawn and landscaping, so I started a lawn and landscaping business called Pure Green Services. So,
That's awesome. Dude, I love that.
Very cool.
What specific? Wait, what questions do you have? I guess as far as starting out, or
Let me ask you a quick question. How'd the parents take that? So you decide straight out of high school to start a business.
Well, actually, it was my dad's idea. He was like, I know. So
I love your dad.
I know. He like sat me down. And he was like, I know like your end goal is to have a business, and he was like, why not just kind of go for it?
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, yeah, that sounds good. And so I'm still gonna get my associates. I feel like I should always have like a backup plan for anything. But yeah, that's kind of how it started.
You have your associates now, or you're working on?
Oh, I got one more year, and I got my associates.
Nice.
So,
so you're doing this, going to school at the same time.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love parents that believe in their kids, and a lot of people do need to go to college, and a lot of people don't.
Oh, yeah.
And don't need the 4-year degree. So very cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right, so you got some questions for Luke. Walk us. Let's go ahead and start with question number 1, and I'll let you answer obviously the landscaping side of stuff because I've mowed my grass a couple times.
That doesn't count.
And then we'll tag team a little bit on the branding side.
All right. Well, I don't really have like an actual order. I just kind of some thoughts came ahead. I kind of wrote down. So I guess the first one, the main problem I had like going off is like how exactly managing like your money from like you have to make profit for yourself, but yet you have to have money coming into your business so you can keep on growing.
Sure.
And like how did you come up with like certain percentage comes to me and like how much goes back into my business?
So for me. The way that it worked was because I started this thing in high school. I didn't really have a whole lot of overhead, right? Like there wasn't really a lot of regular expenses that I had that were eating me up every day. So I had a fortunate situation where I was able to put almost 100% of what I was making back into the business to grow it that much faster. And so, I really think it first thing I would say is set up a business account, set up a personal account. Don't run everything through the same account. But from that point, I would try to take as little as possible for yourself in the beginning. And because cash flow is really king, and the amount of money you can put behind something to move it forward faster is going to grow the company that much quicker, right? So the more you can put back into the business and growing it, especially on the advertisement marketing side of things, you don't always have to have the best equipment. A lot of people get really caught up in that, and it's really not about that. It's really about, how do you get something that can make you efficient? Obviously, you want to have, good commercial equipment, but you can buy all that stuff used starting out. You don't have to go buy brand new stuff. And then using everything else after that on the marketing and how do you bring in enough business quick enough to really get you to that sustainable place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that answer the question?
No, it does.
Okay.
No, yeah.
Cool.
I guess my second question is it's only been like week 2 now. I've been blessed with like a lot of customers coming in, and I'm realizing I'm going to need an employee much faster than I realized I need to.
Good.
And I was wondering since you had like 19 employees like toward the end, if when you first had your employees, did you like have an actual dude you hired? Did you have like a contract type of employee?
Yeah, so it was a nightmare, not gonna lie. I mean, I was 18 when I hired my first person, and it was a friend from high school, and so I had no idea whatsoever what I was doing. And long story short, what I ended up doing was I was mowing about 100 yards a week my senior year, and so I graduate. Here I go through the summer. We get to mid-August, and he's telling me, he was a year younger, so he's becoming a senior, and he's like, "All right, so we're getting ready to go back to school. Just want to let you know it's going to be about a week or so." I was so swept up in the business that I really didn't think about it much more than that. And so the next thing you know, it's Monday, and he goes back to school, and I'm like, here I am with 100 yards.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh, shoot, what am I, you know what I mean? Like, that's not even possible.
DEFCON
Like, one
5,
guy can go mow 10 houses a week or 10 houses a day by himself. Okay, maybe 12 to 15, but not 25. And so I was like, I have no idea. Like, I was like panic mode. Like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. So I started watching videos on hiring and what to do and all that kind of stuff. And so it was not one of those things that happened overnight. And I think if you're going to build a sustainable, large company, especially one that can support you without you being there every day, and a lot of people don't think about it this way, but we spend so much time and effort building a marketing team and putting all this money into marketing to build a client list. We don't spend half of the amount of energy into marketing for employees. And so my life really changed when I started to do that. And I went through 6 or 7 people in the first 2 weeks, just people that thought they could get into it. And then it was a lot harder than it was. It's mid-August, right? So it's like 105 degrees. Mm-hmm. It's the worst part of the year to try to get into lawn care if you're not already in that business. And so, it was very much like here today, gone tomorrow for the first, like you said, 6, 7 people. And then like 7th or 8th person that came in stuck. And I was doing everything under the sun, right? Like I was going to all of the places. I was thinking about what my best employee looked like, and then I was going to the places where they hung out, and I was passing out business cards, and I was saying, "Hey, if you send me a referral and an employee works out, I'll give you $100. Just keep my card and tell them that you referred them to me." And so that's how I was trying to build the first list. And so I was putting stuff out on Facebook. I was putting stuff out to my church group. I was putting stuff out, like I said, in places where I thought my guys were working. I was just trying to be in the mindset of if I'm this employee, where would I be? And what do I need to say that would make somebody interested in joining me versus staying where they're currently at? And I was at that mindset at that point where I was like, look, I don't have time to train somebody from the ground up. I need to find somebody where I can just throw them in and they're going to pick it up, and they already have a general understanding of what I want. And that's where that ended up going.
And you may be in a stage right now where you do have time to kind of train somebody from the ground up. So if that's the case, that broadens the reach just a little bit. An entrepreneur that I love has this great quote that hiring is guessing and firing is knowing.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that's definitely true.
So you're gonna go through some people in all likelihood, unless you get really lucky. Yeah,
you can't like sit there like everybody wants. At least in this industry, everybody wants to go through the interview process. It's not that, like, come on, right. You're either in it or you're not. You know what I mean? Like, this is something you're interested in or you're not. And so it's not really this, like, you don't really have like hundreds of people to choose from. So it was for me one of those things where it's like, hey, look, we're gonna go for a day. If it works for a day, we'll talk about the week. And if it works for a week, we'll talk about a month. And then we just kind of have a reevaluation process all the time.
So did you ever have somebody? I love what you just brought up here, because it's not something I would have thought about. So let me talk about it from another angle. Did you ever have somebody that you were like, hey, we'd love to have you come on, and you just went ahead and kind of promised them however many yards a week for however
there was
long?
Definitely guys that I saw working in that.
So it worked both ways.
Yeah.
There were some people that was like, we'll give you a 1-day trial. And you let them know that. Like,
Yeah,
let's see how it goes.
It's always up front every time. It was like,
Was
hey,
that both sides? Was that like, hey, because you kind of acknowledged that, hey, this you might not want to do this after a day.
most of the guy when I started pulling from actual like really legit skilled labor, it was they wouldn't commit until they knew they had a full-time job. Like it was not a, hey, I'm gonna go jump ship and test the waters with you. It was, hey, if I'm gonna come over, I need the work.
So early on, I'm gonna speak for you for a second. Early on, with maybe at the stage that Sam's in right now, it probably makes sense, probably not to guarantee all the work at this stage.
I mean,
of the
if you're in a place where you're like, hey, I know I have 5 days a week, and you can promise somebody that you've got 5 days a week worth of work, which you can get there really quickly in lawn care. It's a lot harder to get there in the design build side of things because it's a lot of estimating. It's a lot, it's just a lot of work in that side of things. But if you're going to be building a lawn care company, maintenance company, you can get there really quickly. And I would steer you into the place of find somebody that's going to be a long-lasting person versus spending your time training somebody and then finding out that they really don't want to be in the space, and then 6 months later they're gone.
Or 3 weeks later in some cases. I mean, I'm sure you went.
It's
a
brutal space.
The turnover
a lot of
can be
people that
crazy.
get into this don't really realize how hot and how brutal it really is. And so you kind of want somebody that already has an understanding of what they're getting into when you hire them.
So are you listening for that as people are talking?
Yeah. I mean, but I also knew like a lot of the times, like I would be asking the questions, where'd you come from?
Okay.
As far as like what was your previous experience, right? Who was employing you before me?
Okay.
And then in the hiring process, you do want to ask some questions like, what was your previous experience like? Who is the past couple of companies? And if you're hearing just complete negative after negative after negative, then you're probably getting somebody that's going to just be.
If they're complaining about small stuff, they're not going to enjoy the space.
So next thing you know, they're making you miserable because they're complaining about everything. But that's getting way off into the weeds into like a lot of the hiring side of things. But I mean, you can definitely hire friend. I don't even know why I said that. Do not hire friends. Okay, don't. It gets you into a lot of. I've unfortunately lost friendships because I tried to bring people in. There's been a few, and if you watch this podcast, you know who you are. That worked out really well, and
but you're risking.
But the risk is very high in losing a friendship, and
if
it's
you don't
really
want to risk a
not worth
relationship, it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's really not worth it, and it puts you in a really hard position because now you go from a friendship to a boss employee situation, and it just doesn't work well. So you can do that to get you by a couple of times if you've got friends that really want to help you out or something in the beginning or whatever. But I would try to look for a long-lasting employee as quickly as possible because that's what's going to set you free from being in the truck every day to sending them off to go mow 10 yards by themselves a day and you off building the business is having the person that you don't have to micromanage 24/7.
Good. Really good.
Yeah. Does it make sense?
No, it makes
Any
sense,
specific questions on that?
None come to mind currently.
Cool.
Yeah.
What you got?
Alrighty. I guess the next question is, been having a hard time like managing like if I want to do the smaller jobs or like the bigger jobs. So I'm starting to get a lot of like quotes for landscaping.
Yeah.
And I'm like not sure if I have like time to manage of like I could do one big job, but then yet I have the lawn care on the other side to take care of. Not sure if you knew how to handle that.
So are you talking about lawn care versus installation, or are you talking about large installation versus smaller installation?
Large installation, yeah, versus small.
It goes really. This is hard because a lot of those small projects are really like it really just, in my opinion, comes down to what it is. I always lean towards the larger ones because of the fact that it kind of guarantees you a little bit more time on a project and there's a little bit more money involved, and it gives you a lot more opportunities for upsells and stuff like that.
I would assume a lot of times what ends up happening is that you start in on stuff and then they add to during the project.
Yeah,
like you have that
I've had
happen
so
a lot.
many projects where you start. You want it to. I mean, really, like what I look for is somebody that has a big enough budget to start, so that you get into it. And I guarantee you, when you get into it, they're going to look at something and go, "I love that. Let's add 2 more of those." or 5 more, you know what I mean? And that's the way those projects typically go versus the small projects that are typically like, hey, you need to get in and out, and then you always want to think about unbillable hours, okay? And what I mean by that is windshield time, materials, marketing, estimating, all of that stuff that you really, you have overhead and you have to incorporate all that stuff, but it's a lot. The more you can spend on one project and you're not driving back and forth, like say you can do one project and you show up there at 7 a.m. and you leave at 5 o'clock at night and you don't do anything besides what you're doing with that one project versus going to 5 projects in that day. You have to go get 5 different sets of material. You got to spend 5 different times driving in the truck. You have 5 different projects you have to clean up. You have, you know what I'm saying? You have 5 more projects you have to estimate and then bill and then collect and then make sure the customer's happy. So if you can get into something where it's big enough where it takes the majority of your time and it just works out better just from a profitability standpoint and all of that kind of stuff. So that's where I would lean. Now, again, in the beginning, I get this because I did this. You have to sometimes take anything and everything you can just because you gotta, especially when you put somebody else in your truck and you're now responsible for somebody else's paycheck. You get into a position really quickly where you're like, hey, I've gotta take this because I need 5 days of work. Where, if you can get into a position where you're like, hey, no, I'm not. This doesn't make sense for me. I'm gonna walk away. That's obviously the best position to be in, but.
You don't start off at that position very often.
You don't start off with that very often.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I would spend the majority of my energy targeting the biggest stuff first, and then everything else after that, and that would be my focus.
Cool.
Yeah. Anything you want to add on that?
No, that was really good.
Yeah.
So I know that I don't really know your full story. But my brother told me some that you started making a whole lot of money when you're doing like online marketing for your business. Am I correct?
Yeah. So the digital marketing company that I'm in now has definitely given me a lot more flexibility on my time versus the lawn care space. The lawn care space for me was there was, I'm not going to lie, there was definitely things that I could have done that make that business better for me. The first thing that I didn't build it properly. I built it around myself a lot. And so even though I had a secretary, even though I had 19 employees, I left all of the estimating, routing, all of the like big stuff, checking on crews, making sure stuff was done properly. All of the stuff that I should have delegated out to like a project manager or a general manager or something like that, I was doing myself. And so it was a huge, it was 5 a.m. till 9 o'clock at night, come home, paperwork till midnight, get up and do it all over again. And so the marketing company kind of set me free from that because I didn't have 24/7 work. I could be a lot more responsible with my time and delegation to a lot of other people, which is props to James, who started Online Edge. Like, he had to kind of get there himself with this company, but he had kind of set the groundwork for me so that when I came in, I could take that and run with it from that point on. So
I think what he was asking was when you started doing digital marketing for the lawn care side of stuff.
Oh, yeah, so I totally missed the question.
No, it was good information. I'll take it. But I was asking
110%. So it was scratching and clawing, and I mean, the hustle was real when I was trying to just drum it up myself, right? Like, I was telling everybody I knew, hey, I was asking people, hey, how you doing? What are you doing with your life these days? Just so that they could flip the question so that I could talk to them about what I was doing. And that's how I was trying to drum up, right? Like, a lot of the business. I was hitting up my church. I was hitting up my friends. I was hitting up my parents' friends. I was hitting up people in my neighborhood, on my street, anything and everything. Door hangers. I mean, it was networking groups. It was like hustle beyond hustle. And you're 100% right. So I was talking to Josh about this, that it was when it took 2 years. a year, 2 years. I don't know. I'd have to ask my guy, but he originally closed me on my website after 2 years of me like, no, I don't need that. That's a scam.
So you didn't have a website for the first?
I didn't have a
website.
For the first, 5 years.
Jeez.
Till I graduated.
Okay.
And I think it might have been 1 year after I graduated.
So you just busted tail.
I busted tail. And I was running stuff like, hey, if you refer me on Nextdoor or you refer me to your neighbor or whatever, I'll give you a free mow. So I was using that. I was using promotions on my current client base that loved me, knew me, whatever.
It was just it was very referral based.
It was very referral based. So, I was thinking about doing Home Advisor, and he stopped me and he was like, dude, why don't you build your own leads versus buying leads from somebody else? And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But this is a lot of money. Like, I don't know if I'm ever going to see this back. Like, what if it doesn't work? I don't really know about this. I'm already doing this stuff, so this is killing it. So why do I need to spend this amount of money to really do this? And so eventually he closed me. And my company could have been 3 times the size if I would have done it when he originally pitched me. Because one, the amount of people that were moving to McKinney that were just Googling lawn care services near me or lawn care services McKinney, mowing companies in McKinney, Collin County, whatever. I was primarily based in McKinney, so I really didn't want to target a whole bunch of other stuff. But that was the game changer. That was what doubled the company year after year. And I stopped spending money on everything else, and it was just lead. I mean, it set me free in the standpoint of I was no longer bidding stuff to win it. I was bidding stuff to grow the business. And so it didn't matter if you didn't like the fact that I wasn't going to charge you $20 a week. I wanted $27 or $30 because I knew I had another lead tomorrow. And so it really kind of set me free from the standpoint of like a scarcity mentality to an abundance, because I just always knew like this thing produced like every day. We focused on high quality service, good customer service, getting really high quality reviews. And so we were one of the leaders with 60 something 5-star reviews. Everybody else had like 20. And so immediately we had kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit of like,
just a reputation.
Yeah, just a reputation, but I hate when I do this. But just really a reputation behind the business. And so that was really what changed the game, because we could then decide, okay, we don't really want to go this far out. We want to stay closer to this part of McKinney or this part of McKinney. And so it really helped us grow the density. It really helped us so that we didn't have to expand into 5 cities. A lot of companies in this space will go to 5 different cities for every day of the week. They'll do a different city for every day of the week. And so now you, again, go back to the windshield time you're paying, your crew leader $16, $17, $18 an hour and everybody else $13, $14 an hour. And now you have 3 hours of windshield time a day because you're driving to Frisco or McKinney or Allen or Fairview or Frisco. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now you have a whole bunch of windshield time that you can't really bill for. And so by keeping that density really tight and by having the leads, we were able to say, no, we can't service that, unfortunately, but here's a couple of referrals. But it just really helped grow the business in a way that it really made sense from a money perspective,
yep,
from a time perspective, from what I was happy with doing with my life. And so, yeah. Cool. Glad we got on that other tangent. Yeah. I'm glad you pulled that back.
Next question.
Alrighty. Let's see. How'd you deal with like unhappy customers?
That took a lot of work. It really gets easy to get fed up in some standpoints where you're just like,
well, hang on. There's two unhappy customers. Right?
That's true. Yeah. That's true. That's a good point.
You messed up, and they wouldn't have been happy with anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
So first customer, because you and I've asked you this question before. First customer, you messed up.
No. First customer. Well, I mean,
I'm saying let's cover that one first. So you.
Oh, okay.
Something could have.
Okay.
Something could have
first
been
customer,
done.
Yes, I did mess. So
for an example.
For an example, we got into a project. It was mid-spring. It's in a very high-end neighborhood down in Frisco where they have a gatekeeper and they have a curfew. And so they don't let contractors work after 5 o'clock.
That kind of curfew.
And so I bid this project not knowing this, and I got through the whole thing, and then here we go, the grass gets delivered, and it was a sod install. It was a complete rip out of all of his existing grass and installing 7 pallets of zoysia, which is the highest quality grass on the market. And at the time, I have enough guys where we're mowing all day, and then we do our projects in the evening. So I would pay them over. We'd get done at like 3, and then I'd pay them overtime from 3 to 6 to 7 to do the projects. And so that's how I bid this. And I didn't realize that, and I ship my grass there. It gets delivered, and then we show up, and then I realize that we can't do the work. And so it was a rush job. It was not our quality work. It came out looking horrible. I was not happy with the finished product. The guy calls me the next day, and he's like, "Hey, Luke, this isn't gonna work." And I was like, "Not gonna lie, I agree." It was don't give me this was $7-8 grand.
Okay, so I want to interject here because that's what you just said was really good. The fact that you don't even fight him at all, because a lot of people in those moments, though. I mean, I've dealt with. I know you're wrong. I know you got to fix this, and then them fight me on it. I'm never doing business with those guys again.
Yeah.
You don't fight me on it, and we figure out how to fix this thing. Now all of a sudden you're not out. I'll call you again. If I know you'll stand behind your work and you'll fix something, dude, we're fine. Okay. Everybody's gonna mess up.
Yeah.
So the way it ended up going, I know exactly where I was when he called me. And
it's like a flashback moment right now.
It was totally a flashback.
He's gonna start crying in a second. And you started this.
Well, you asked for the situation. This is by far the worst.
I've heard this story before. That's why I brought this up like this.
This might have been the only project that went like this. And
do you know why this is the only project that went like this?
Because this happened early on, and
you fixed it.
Yeah.
When you deal with the pain of fixing something, you don't want to deal with that pain over and over again.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm really serious.
That's true. Well, so it was the biggest hassle, right? So I told the guy, I said, I knew in my head that I had to make it right. I just didn't know what I was going to do.
Right.
And so he calls me and says, "Luke, this isn't going to work." And so I said, "Okay, we're going to use Johnson for the example." I said, "Mr. Johnson, I hear what you're saying." I said, "Honestly, I know we're going to make this right, however that looks for you, but I need a couple of days to figure out what that looks like. So I will call you back Thursday at 12 o'clock at the latest and let you know what's going to happen to fix your problem." And so I ended up calling him a couple hours later, and I said, "Hey, here's what we're going to do." And I said, "We're going to come back in, we're going to rip everything out, we're going to haul it off, we're going to redo the whole project, bring in new grass, and completely do the thing from scratch again. My expense." And so that whole project, so I ended up, because of the situation, I ended up losing everything on that. I think I spent $7,000 on the project instead of making $7,000 on the project.
Yeah.
Because I had to reorder grass. I paid somebody else.
There's work to undo it.
I paid somebody else to come undo the project. Yep. Okay, so I had to then dispose of all of the bad material. I had to order new grass. I had to pay guys to go out there and re-prep everything, relay everything. But when I got done, I will never really forget that guy's expression. He was blown away that, one, I guess maybe that I was 19, and that I actually was like, dude, I'm not gonna not answer your. you hear about this all the time where somebody doesn't answer the phone, they just ghost, like they're just non-existent anymore. And I knew that my reputation was on the line. I knew that this was going to be a pivotal moment for me. And so I ate it.
And you also knew who you wanted to be.
And I knew that I couldn't wake up the next day and feel happy with myself if I didn't fix the
Right.
problem. So it sucked from every angle, but I made it right. And so from that point forward, that guy was one of my best referral guys. He sent me more stuff for himself later. He sent me the same project for his friend. And every time one of those people would call me, they'd be like, "Hey, I heard about the experience that Mr. Johnson had, and we'd love for you to come to give us a bid."
Now, let's cover somebody complaining about something ridiculous.
So,
you got any examples of that, Luke?
yeah, this is the only time that I walked off a job, and still to this day, I don't really like how it went down. But there really wasn't any further action that could have been taken the way that it ended up going down. And so had a project, bid it, walked the project with the client. He had a landscape design done by an architect, but there was no plant scale. So usually on a design build, you have different icons that represent different plant material. Some might be a square, some might be a triangle, some might be
and then a
key
that says what those things are.
You have a key that says what they are, and it had that, but there was nothing that said plant sizes. So I knew what type of plants, but I didn't have any idea of what size of plants. And so I meet the client. He insists that we take a walk through the nursery to look at all the plants. I never do this, but for some odd, this is a red flag, but for some reason I decided I would do that. When I walked the project, I didn't realize this until after I got done with the project, but he had piecemealed the whole thing. So he had somebody come in, do the stone border. He had somebody come in and do the landscape lighting. And I was like, why would you have somebody come do the landscape lighting when the landscape's not even installed? Like, there's no way that this can be installed properly because you don't know what you're highlighting. But he did. And while I'm estimating it, he goes, "Hey, yeah, that lighting people, like, I just need them to come switch out 2 or 3 bulbs, and I'll pay them. But I haven't paid them yet. They sent me to collections because I haven't paid them yet. But I'm just waiting for them to switch a couple of bulbs out." And in my head, it didn't really switch, but that should have been a red flag because I should have said, "What company is waiting to get paid on a couple of light bulbs?"
Right.
If all you're waiting on to get a check, and I knew that the landscape lighting bill was like $2,200. If you're waiting on $2,200, dude, I will be there in 5 minutes to switch your light bulbs out.
With 17 light bulbs.
Yeah. Like, you want me to meet you there at 5 o'clock at night? Dude, I'm meeting you there whatever time you want me to meet you there. And so that should have been a red flag, but it wasn't a red flag. And so I looked at this later on down the road, and I was like, mental knowledge. Like, I'm going to pull that out. I'm just going to watch for stuff like this in the future. So what ends up happening is we walk the plant material. He approves everything. He gives me a 50% check, which covers all materials. We get all of that stuff done. We get all of the plants in. We lay everything out. We install it the way that the design shows. And I call him about 5:30, 6 o'clock. We get done. We're already out of there. I just gave him a call. He sends me straight to voicemail. And I just said, "Hey, wanted to check in. We just finished 50% of the installation today. We're going to be out tomorrow to finish the rest of it. But just wanted to see what you thought." He sends me this text message where he's like, "Everything's wrong. Everything needs to be ripped out. This is completely wrong. These boxwoods are supposed to be globes, and they're single plants." And I mean, I can get into the whole thing, right? Like, you have 17 plants, and the only way that it fits in the design is if you have 1 gallons. Now you take that out and you make those actual globes. Now you're talking about a 3 or 5 gallon plant. So you can't fit 17 3 or 5 gallon plants in where you could fit 17 1 gallon plants. So he had a complete different idea of how the landscape was going to come out. So I said, "Hey, no worries." I said, "I will come out before we touch the project again. I will come out and walk the whole thing with you." And I get out there. He's irate. He's cussing. He's screaming. He's like, "Dude, this is ridiculous, blah, 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 blah." And I'm just like, that was the moment when I left that project when I go, I don't know if I can make this guy happy. And so he emails me that night and he goes, hey, I don't feel comfortable with any of you guys being on my property. I'm about to leave town. He's like, this is going to be paused until I get back. And so I said, okay, no worries. That's fine. We'll pick this up when you get back. Is the following is like he's going to be gone for Saturday through Wednesday. On Tuesday, I realized that there's a freeze warning. And so I emailed him. I said, hey, due to your last email, I don't feel comfortable going out to your property and covering up any plants. So just so you know, at this point, all of the plant material on your property is you're responsible for. So if anything dies because of the freeze, I can't be responsible for this because you asked me not to leave. You told me if I showed up on your property, you were going to call the cops for trespassing and blah, 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 blah. And so he sends me back another email and he's just irate. He's like, you did this to me, blah, blah, blah. This was staged, blah, blah. And I'm just like, okay.
Because you're a weather demigod.
Because I'm a weather demigod. So this is the point where I just said, hey, look. I said, you approved all the plant material. You've paid for all the plant material. I said, because of the threats that you've made, because you've told me that you don't want me to come back onto your property or you'll call the police and charge me with trespass. I said, at this point, I'm gonna have to walk away, because I said we can't have a relationship. You've already asked me not to handle any of this stuff. You've approved. I have your signature on the approved list of the plant material. I said, neither of us can move forward from this point. So I said, hey, I appreciate your time. You're gonna have to find somebody else to come install this stuff.